Joel is still here. Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order, 6 p.m. Tonight we have Public Works and Library. We're going to start with Library. In the meantime, is there any public comments or anything anybody wants to say before we get started? Okay, let's go.
Should we introduce ourselves?
I need a, let's go around the table and introduce each other.
Tammy Sheedy, Library Director.
Ben Daish, Finance Director.
Joe Fitzgerald, Project Manager.
Bob Schiller, Public Works Director.
Alderman Reese, 6th Ward Alderman.
Richard Deja, 3rd Ward Alderman.
Ariana Macedo, Staff Accountant.
Ruth Seattle Green, City Administrator.
Scott Lennon, 1st Ward Alderman. Okay, let's call this meeting to order. So what we have been doing is basically, we're going to start with Library, and then we'll have a kind of a combo. We'll start with going through the budget. We have some comments, and then kind of tag team back and forth. So I don't know which one of you want to start.
Thank you, Chairman Lennon. For the library fund, mind you, the library fund is a separate fund within the city. It's not part of the general fund. However, we are reporting that the library's board has submitted and approved on the board's end approved budget. So I will go over the revenues and expenses, and Director Sheedy will comment accordingly as well.
Okay.
First on the revenues, the composition of the revenues is primarily property tax revenues, and we are the property tax revenue for 2024 is the same as 2023 at a little over $4.2 million. The other expense line items can fluctuate, and Director Sheedy is here would be able to get into our grants and other revenue sources.
So for our grant revenue, we have already received the Age Options Grant. This year it was a $7,500 grant, and that's used towards senior services for Berwyn. We also normally get a $25,000 services grant from the state of Illinois. We have received our per capita for this fiscal year in the amount of $84,473. Copier revenue and fines can fluctuate based on usage. We are fine free, however, we do still collect revenue for damaged books, missing books, lost books, things like that. And our copier usage, it just depends on, how many people need copies. We're not quite sure about our actual amount at this time. We're gonna investigate that, so it may be actually higher than that number. And building revenue are basically just donations made to the library, and that just fluctuates every year.
That could be events. Or
It could be events, it could be endowments, it could be fairy tale ball donations, summer reading program donations, so those usually just fluctuate.
Okay.
And then the interest income, Ben has been working on a plan with Illinois funds. I'm gonna let him take over on that.
Sure, and we've been working to maximize the interest income. I believe if anybody's not aware of, the interest rates for deposits have become much more favorable than, say, this time last year, midway through last year, and where it was lower in 2022. We foresee a significant improvement, especially given the short-term rates in the Illinois funds mechanism that's administered by the the Illinois Treasurer, and we're getting very favorable 5% rates on short-term rates. The thing that we are going to work close with the library board and Marta Rodriguez is, how much should we lock in to try and get a fixed rate over a year, 2 years. It just depends on the cash flow needs going forward, but our objective is to maximize that number. We just put a conservative 12,000, hoping that perhaps we'll have more than that to show, to report at the end of '24. So that in essence is the revenues, unless anybody else had any comments on the revenues.
And we always are seeking grant opportunities, so when something becomes available that may be suitable for us, we will go ahead and try to receive grant funding as well.
Transitioning over to the expenditures, total expenditures are budgeted at about 4.4 million, but the primary driver of the expenses are salaries and benefits. Of course, currently is the salaries and wages are pending union negotiations, but we took our best stab at projecting that for budgetary purposes. But salaries and benefits now are slightly over the 2023 adopted budget amounts. Anything further on the staffing?
We had one position that was not replaced when the person retired, and she was one of the higher paid salaries. We also no longer share an employee with IT, so we were able to reduce 2 salaries while still budgeting for an increase pending what we're gonna decide upon with ASME.
Good.
So that's why there wasn't a really big increase in our salaries, because we lost 2
Sure.
chunks of salary.
So, Tammy, are you gonna fill those positions at some point, or are you gonna?
The one that retired, that one will not be filled, just based because we don't need. And the IT position that we were sharing with City Hall, we now have a full-time IT person in place to work with Art. So we have 2 full-time IT people at the library.
Okay,
So we don't need to share Maria anymore.
okay. Thank you.
Next category of expenditures, services and programs, community programs. We're anticipating a slight increase over 2023's budget. Tammy, I believe you mentioned about the 100-year anniversary.
Next year's the 100th anniversary of the library. So we did increase our programming money to try to celebrate our 100-year anniversary throughout the course of the year. There'll be a big shindig in November.
Okay, and general operating expenditures overall, a little bit higher than 2023. Any further perspective on these areas here?
Yes, well, for one, the telephone actually went down. That's gonna just probably be an expectation for 2024. We were going back and forth with AT&T. We have a large amount of credit with them right now. So we did reduce that line for 2024, but it may have to go back up again the following budget year. Our books expenditure went up primarily because our streaming services are doing so well. We use Hoopla, which is a pay-per-use module, so if you check something out from them, and the library gets billed for it. And we put down deposits, and we used to do them 4 times a year, and we're up to 6 times a year now. So we did need to increase our book revenue. And also by state guidelines, 11% of our operating budget has to consist of materials. It can't just be salaries and operational expenses. So that also was an increase with the book line.
Next category, repair and maintenance.
We keep that standard. That is, it's a combination of building repairs, but it's also all of our contracts, our copier contracts, our elevator contracts, our HVAC contract, fire maintenance, so that all comes out of that same GL number. And then when there are building, day-to-day building needs that come up, that's where that money comes from. So if you need to replace a sink, or, the light bulb goes out or something, we would take it out of that GL number.
Next area is our computers. A little lower than the previous year projected. Systems-wise, is there, I know we would,
Yeah, our systems mostly is our belonging to Rails, which is our library consortium. We pay quarterly fees to them. We did reduce our support databases, but that money actually did go back up into the supply line because of our digital media lab and our makerspace. Buying supplies for those 2 rooms, is an expense that we hadn't anticipated. So because we're not using all of our computer support, our computers are all pretty much in a good place right now. We don't need replacements. The server was just rebuilt. We have a battery backup system. We took it out of our computers to put it towards supplies for the computers.
Is the maker system area still free for residents?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so the 3D printing, the Glowforge, all of that, people can just come in and use it. They're free to bring their own materials. We do provide a small amounts.
Okay.
But we've also been doing a lot of promotion with it, so we've been using it internally as well. Like our circ department makes keychains every month, so if you apply for the library, you'll get an I Love Your Library keychain. So it's kind of promoting the equipment and then also just kind of doing something nice for the people at the library. So it's starting to pick up. The kids' maker space gets used quite a bit, and that's more of the arts and crafts supplies, the Lego supplies, sewing machine, and those kind of things for the kids. So they're getting used finally. It was a slow process.
And then the other miscellaneous section, the big driver is at our internal service fund, as mentioned previously, that's based on recent and historic trends in workers' comp and general liability claims. That number's subject to change at 25. It just depends on our year-end audit as far as where the final expense is gonna come in there. And then finally, the area is our capital outlay. What do you foresee there?
So the capital outlay, the big expenditures we need for the capital outlay, we've been doing, equipment assessments at the library. We know our boiler is close to end of life. Fortunately, our chiller has been replaced, but we don't know, the roof would need to be assessed, the elevators need to be assessed. It's an old building. And anytime, you open one door, you don't know what you're going to find behind it. We also need to replace our entrance ramp. The concrete is cracking and leaking. And what our goal is to not only just put in a new concrete ramp, we'd like to build a canopy over it. Because it's the weather that's really taking its toll on the ramp. When they salt it, you have to oversalt because it's the handicap ramp. So if we build a canopy over it, it would protect it from the weather, it would protect the people coming into the building, and honestly, it would make the building look more like a library than a factory. So, we had a quote for that last year, and that was about $400,000. So that's obvious, for the canopy and the ramp.
Oh.
It would be a concrete pillar canopy, it's not just a metal one.
Mm.
So, because we wanted to make sure that it was something that was gonna be long-lasting. So, so what the board has decided to do, and it's something that Ben and I are gonna discuss, is the money that we're budgeting for capital outlay, we would like to then transition to a capital reserve fund at the end of the year that we don't use it. So that's money that's gonna be specifically set aside for building repairs, whereas anything remaining in our budget goes into the fund balance, to cover overages and to cover, in case we don't get our property taxes in time. So we're working, Ben and I are going to start working on, and the board, starting a capital reserve fund for library repairs.
Yeah, I just gotta verify the accounting end as far as how.
I mean, the parking lot needs to be repaved, there's just so many little things that all add up after a while.
We talked about that the other night in the board meeting.
Yes.
About, long-term.
Long-term.
5-year, whatever it's gonna be and what you're gonna need.
Right.
Moving forward for maintenance.
Right, and we will be starting a strategic plan in January, so that will that would help us assist with, what do we need to do, and that's why we're starting to call contractors out to give us assessments on our HVAC, on our electric, our elevators, our plumbing, the roof, just so that we know where we stand for the next 5 to 10 years.
Okay, and we might, if you're, obviously shovel ready and some of that, we might be able to reach out to some of the leaders in the state to see if there's any grant opportunities or any money there for that.
Okay, that's good,
Okay, so
yeah.
we can talk
There's
about
one grant through the state right now, the Library Association offers, it's a Live and Learn grant, but they give you $125,000, which you have to match.
Sure, yeah.
And then, so you're still looking, so we would be putting in like $225,000 to their $125 to get a project like the entrance ramp done. And right now, it's just too big of a hit on the budget, with all the uncertainties.
Sure.
So if we can continue to find more funding, that's something that we definitely wanna look into.
Okay.
Anybody, any further questions, comments?
I think we're good.
Thank you, Tammy.
Oh,
Thank you, Tammy.
That was painless?
Wonderful.
Thank you. Good luck, Bob.
Oh, come on, you can stay in our date.
Do you want me to be an audience member with you? Moral support.
Run away.
I'm
Run
going
away.
to. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Are we gonna start with the public works?
Streets.
And then
Streets?
utilities, then capital?
Yep.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Got it. Yep, this job. Yeah, that's the one we started.
All right. So we now transition over to back to the general fund, and the component of the general fund being the Public Works Department, streets and fleet. And we'll go over briefly the revenues. The main revenue source involves reimbursements. Primarily, I mean, that could be damages to various property as well as
Yeah.
certain
Lights.
Street lights hit,
Medians?
damage to the center median on Cermak Road, signs hit, light poles, any myriad of things.
Which we probably just get a stipend for that. I'm sure we don't get full price for, things.
Insurance
Insurance.
companies usually
Depends
don't
on
have the full amount.
how hard I dig in my spurs.
Yeah. Or if they have insurance or no
Yes.
insurance too, so that's it.
So we put 120,000 just based on historic trends for budgetary purposes. The next area, that's on the revenue front. Grant-wise, specific to streets, anything forthcoming as far as just on the street section?
Yeah, we are, STP funding, but that will be, it'll be finished in 2024, so. But that's ongoing for the depot project, that's part of the funding for the depot. We had a DECO grant of $750 this year that was expended for additional roadway work. We have another DECO that we secured for $250 for next year. We'll probably apply it to the green alleys. Always ongoing, and there's gonna be more STB funding and additional grant funding. We've got $5 million for 16th Street. And we've got $5 million from Congressman Garcia for 34th Street. So there's several that are there in place that design is being done and additional funding is being sought to be able to bring the plans that will be finished to fruition in construction. The $5 million for 34th Street covers maybe half, maybe not even that much, of what we're gonna end up having to do.
And for budgeting, as far as the timing goes on when that comes in, we don't know.
We don't know.
Yeah.
That's why typically these are left blank, because we have absolutely no idea.
And
The
the-
DECO grant that we expended this year for $750, that started in 2020. Went back, and then it was pulled, and then with COVID and all of that, so we just never know when it's gonna happen. We've got several EPA, MWRD grant apps out there for additional alleys, so we're always,
And the DECA ones, those are reimbursed, right? You gotta spend it first and then they reimburse you.
And I think we talked about this before, some of the FEMA, there is some assistance from FEMA in infrastructure, was
We've
that
got-
correct?
We've got grant applications out for that as
Okay.
well.
Okay, good.
There's, there's opportunities through FEMA to, create more green alleys. Because with the flooding, they're trying to fund, instead of being reactive and just giving money for people who flood, let's try and be proactive and try and reduce the amount of people that flood by reducing the amount of flooding.
And what's the cost now from a green alley, cause I'm sure the
About
cost is going up.
$360,000.
For each alley,
Each alley,
Sorry,
alley,
each
yeah.
300-foot alley,
I figured the cost had gone up.
so.
All right, we'll transition over, street salaries and benefits, it's predicated on contractual obligations. We see an increase, again, according to contractual terms. Staffing wise, any further commentary on staffing?
I have in the, placed in this year's budget, a new public works employee, the replacement arborist I'm working on, that'll be done before the end of the year. The replacement fleet mechanic will be done before the end of the year. I'm working on that one right now too. I also have a new engineering tech in streets as well. You know, we get grants and we have projects and all this stuff. We need to have bodies to be able to be the eyes and ears on the streets, fill out the paperwork, get everything processed, do pay estimates, do the inspections. Right now, we have one person doing $3 million in asphalt construction, $500,000 in sidewalk, about $1 million in CDBG, and about 300 to 350 inspections in a year, so.
Yeah, with all this extra construction that we've been doing.
Well, the construction, that, and plus with the upcoming water services and everything like that, the paperwork is just gonna go up and up and up.
Sure.
So I'm ultimately asking for 2
Okay.
engineering techs, one in water and one in street.
Okay.
For street right now, that's what I have for staffing.
Okay.
The other expenditures are relatively, general operating, slight increases, always mindful of fuel costs, as far as, it's best budget conservative, on the general operating. Anything further in that section?
We're just, just general increases in, fuel, telephone supplies, we're just, postage, postage is higher here because the fact that we've got the sidewalk mailers that now go out, we've got, additional mailers that go out for each of the, paving projects, we're sending mailers out and stuff like that, so we raised our postage.
What's telephone, Bob? Is that
Telephones,
for,
phones at the building,
oh, at the building?
landlines.
Oh,
We
okay.
have landlines that are dedicated street, and then we have more telephone that are dedicated, water. Water covers, cell phones as well.
Next 2 categories, professional services, and then leading into repair and maintenance. Professional services in the streets is mainly the tree cutting and.
Professional services encompasses tree services, planting and trimming. It encompasses pavement. It encompasses the roadway repair stuff that we're doing in-house, as well as additional contractual items that are not associated with any of our bid projects, sidewalks, things like that.
Next area after that, we're looking at our equipment and lease expense. You know, we have current lease obligations for prior agreements. Thing to consider in the future as we go into capital projects is whether leasing for any future capital needs is advantageous given the interest, the challenges in interest rates and things like that. Other than that, anything further on the existing leases?
No, there's nothing further, we're just, yeah, we, in the past, with interest rates low, it was advantageous for us to lease purchase all of our, equipment, because we were getting real low interest rates and we could spread everything out and not take that hit all at once. But with interest rates being north of 8% and with these type of loans, probably around 9%, is it worth paying 45% more than the cost of the vehicle to pay cash for it? You know, that's kind of the things we're looking at right now.
So we don't have the actual 2023 amounts yet for that category?
No, that's good. As far as the final lease expense amount?
Well, for fleet, sub-department 37 fleet,
No, we're in
Where's under?
page 2.
I'm on
Yes.
page 2.
Oh, yeah.
We're at the top, up
You're
here,
up here?
which
Yeah,
is,
we haven't got to the.
Oh, okay.
that's the, street department leases for the sweepers and,
Gotcha.
enterprise.
I heard fleet, so I just went to that
Yeah.
category.
Yeah, that's all right.
Everything's kind of cross-pollinated.
Yeah. The only other categories in street, we talked about the internal service fund representing claims and general liability to be finalized as part of our year-end audit. And as far as capital needs, we'll talk further about that in the separate capital project fund as far as what's needed there. The next area of expenditures involves the fleet, and that you're leaving open as far as the salaries and related in the event that your staff.
Yeah, I've got it set right now at about, 73,000, and then benefits accordingly.
And then, of course, supplies, it's, do our best to budget conservatively, but we're always gotta monitor that closely as far as inflationary pressures on supplies needed for parts to keep the vehicles running.
Especially with the strikes going on, it's,
Yep.
if you find it, it's expensive.
Yeah. Same goes for repair and professional services in the event you have to shop out some of the repairs that are needed in the fleet area.
Since I've been without a mechanic for quite a while now.
Yeah.
There's a lot more in there that's covering my repair costs.
How long have you been without a mechanic?
Off and on this year, over half the year.
And you're getting closer to hiring somebody?
I've got somebody that I'm gonna talk to next week, so.
I believe that does it for the expenses on the public works. If anybody else has any questions on the public works part. We can move over to our utility fund, separate fund, which is our business activity proprietary account that the revenues come from the billings to our resident and commercial customers. We had last year implemented our rate structure, five-year plan to try and accommodate the inflationary pressures as well as the upholding and maintaining our existing infrastructure. And that's where you see the increase in revenues as provided by the next year's rate structure. In addition to that, the other revenues, it's all we can do is go according to recent and historic trends to determine the other categories within the utility fund. With regard, the thing with the next category being garbage, I believe everybody's well aware of the decision that's at hand with regard to our refuse garbage provider. But for now, we're budgeting, for budgetary purposes, we're budgeting the same as the last year's budget for now for garbage.
So Ben, I have a quick question on that. So here you have your numbers, right, that are actual budgeted, et cetera. This is not accurate in regards to what we actually collect from residents, right? This is what we're being billed for?
This is what we're billing the residents.
Okay,
yes.
so this is what we're paying out.
This is,
This is what we're collecting.
we're,
Garbage
just
fees, this is what we're paying, isn't it?
Yes.
Right, that's what I just said.
Right.
This is what we're
We're paying,
so then
paying,
we
this
have
is
to-
not what we've collected from residents.
this is what we've billed the residents.
Okay, but is it actual
it's
to
a-
what we receive, or this is just what we're paying because
It's a-
that's our contract with waste?
Are you talking about the garbage?
Yes,
Yes, the billings are in advance. So we, these are the billings, you know, to our residents. It's not reflective of what we're collecting from the
Right,
residents. It's
okay.
billed in advance.
Is that information in here, the revenue from it? You know, about, here's the cost, here's the revenue for it, within this budget?
Yes, you'll see that in this next line, as far as the cost, professional services, 36, it's a little bit lower,
Okay,
right below
gotcha.
so they're under 5,300.
where is that, Ben? I'm sorry.
Under expenses.
You'll see expenses and you'll see Department
Yeah,
36
professional.
garbage. That's where you'll see
Circle.
the expenditures.
It's in here?
Yeah.
These are the ones he was talking about before, this is where he's talking about
Got it, thank you.
expenses.
So,
Okay.
that is the revenue section. Again, the water and sewer salaries and benefits. Some of it is predicated on existing contractual obligations, but there's other components that are pending union negotiations as well. We did our best to project, make a projection for budgetary purposes, as you see there.
Okay.
What does that bad debt expense line mean?
Bad debt represents at year end, we evaluate our receivables and, you know, we work with our auditors to determine the collectability of the billings that we perform.
Okay.
And that will fluctuate depending on performances of our,
These severely past due
yeah. Yeah.
bills,
Yeah.
and how much are collectible and how much are written off due to bankruptcy and everything else.
Got it.
Currently, we do have a staff member, he's been working for the last few years, and his job is solely just working with people on collections, and he usually targets the ones that are higher, and then he makes payment programs with them, and that way we can try to get some of those expenses that haven't been, you know, that are open out there, collected.
And then as well, our staff tries, even the lower balances, to try and do our best to facilitate payment so that you don't have, our objective is not to have the accumulation of
Reduce the
balances.
amount of-
Yes.
But if they're late, if they're delinquent in waste, they're delinquent in water and
Yes.
sewer, correct, right?
Yes.
They're all tied
Yeah.
together in
It's
the
all,
same
it's all
bill.
the same bill.
Same bill.
So yes, if they're delinquent in one, they're delinquent in all the other
Right.
ones too.
The next area, as far as our general, you know, slight increase versus the 2023 budget, like we had mentioned, you know, with inflationary pressures on our utilities, that, you know, we could foresee an uptick in expenditures there. We're budgeting, and then, of course, beyond that, we do anticipate mailers as far as the postage and printing. Is
There's
that-
gonna be a lot of communications going back and forth with the upcoming, you know, lead water replacement requirements and the assistance opportunities that we're providing, as well as the flood mitigation assistance that we're providing with, an upcoming revision to that. There'll be a lot of mailings going out with that kind of stuff.
Is FEMA focusing just on alleys as far as the flood?
FEMA is focusing on grant funding for the alleys. There's nothing to do with, there's
Nothing to do with mains?
no, well, the thing is that our mains, although undersized, drain into an undersized, interceptor system. If we put 6-foot mains throughout the entire community, it still drains into the same facilities that take the water to the sanitary district. Yes, you will store a little bit more water in the pipes, but the cost versus the benefit, because you're talking probably upwards of, in these day and age, probably close to $1 billion to replace 110 miles of sewer lines, which is what we have for main lines.
And there's still no talk from the federal level in regards to the lead
There's all kinds of talk.
replacement?
There's just no movement.
Got it. So nothing for sure at all?
Yeah, no, yes, the for sure is it still has to be done.
Right, but no funding?
As far as funding right now.
Secure funding?
They talked about funding, now they're leaning towards partial funding to extenuating circumstances, like schools and things like that. But yeah, the regular residential / commercial type funding, they're still talking, is all they're doing on that.
Okay.
Next, professional services. It looks like you went down from 2023. Professional services again consists of, is that for like engineering or some?
That covers a whole myriad. Professional services covers engineering design for alleys, for the geotech for alleys. You know, we get a resident that will call one of you saying that my alley is, you know, I need a new alley. What we do is we'll take a bunch of those, put them on a contract, and have a geotech company go in and take soil borings that go about 8 feet deep. They pull those borings out and evaluate the composition of the soils to see if it is supportive of a green alley where the water will percolate through the soil, or is it all clay? If it's all clay, all you make is a fishbowl. So, because it doesn't drain. So we use that information to then take the requests and then line them up with the opportunity for the most successful ones first.
Next area, repair and maintenance. You do see a reduction there. Is that correct? It's been up and down, but yeah.
It just depends on the year, and the year's not over yet.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I only have, you know, I have a staff of, you know, 4 water guys.
Mhm.
So if we're doing snow, or if we're short-staffed for whatever reason, I need to bring in outside assistance in for main breaks and such.
Yeah.
That's where some of that stuff comes from.
Gotcha. Just depends. We see us, lease expense, for equipment, that 200,000, that's probably, we had a recent, did we have a recent lease that increases that amount, or is that our existing terms on there?
That's what we have existing right now. We have, what do we have on there? We have something that's gonna be expiring. So we had the generator up north was in there, as a purchase like that. We had a couple of different things that were in there, but that's,
Mhm.
I'm expecting that to possibly even drop off this year, some, mid part of next year.
Next section is one of our biggest drivers of our costs. Cost of water, $5,600, that's our payments to the city of Chicago. Right now, we're on a 5% increase, maximum annual increase. The city normally lets us know around June, per se.
Yeah, usually in May, it goes into effect in June.
What's upcoming though, who knows, it could be like 2030. The city of Chicago is changing their rate structure to what you call a cost of service. We're monitoring that very closely to determine what the impact for the city will be, whether the same percentages will hold, but at least for the next handful of years, it's still gonna be at around 5% maximum on that.
Do they charge their residents and businesses kind of the same way we do?
No,
Okay.
nope. Most of the residential customers in Chicago were flat fee.
Okay.
They've recently started installing meters in houses, but way over half the houses in Chicago are flat fee.
What is interdepartmental charges?
That is
That's
the-
Ben.
Yeah. That is the annual charge to support the water department. All the staffing, we base it at year end on an allocation according to each of the city departments. And the water department, that's a revenue line item for the city that you see in Florida, but that in essence is the city's staffing to support the utility fund.
Because the water and garbage is a utility fund, basically a business. That's the ancillary cost to run the business. That's the finance department to do the payroll and the billing and stuff like that. That's my people, when the street department have to supplement the water department with repairs and what have you. It's, the rest of the city and how that ties in to support staff for the water department.
And then finally, we have our interest interest expense that's predicated on our past bond issues. That's what we anticipate, and I built in a little more for our IEPA loan, which it's still uncertain as far as when the first payment is. Would it be sometime next? Have you heard anything?
It'll probably be next year.
Yeah, that's the interest expense.
We've got there's another payout on council for next Tuesday.
Mhm.
That'll be that's the second to last one. The last one will be the closeout payout.
So that's Tuesday. Okay. We talked about the bad debt expense predicated on on how the receivables are. That's a year-end audit process to determine that final amount. Capital outlay, next, we're forecasting about $1.3 million. That in essence is to repair the water mains, as well as, there are two other anticipated expenditures on the $290,000, which includes support vehicles for the water department. Is that fair?
Yes.
Yep. And then that's more or less the remaining part of the water department. And then the last section within Public Works is our capital projects. The final report just gives you an indicate the major capital expenditures incurred. For Public Works purposes, Director Schiller, you had, budgeted for $300,000, and that involves a street sweeper.
That's the replacement of a 12-year-old street sweeper. I have, with sweeping our entire community, once a week, it takes a toll on these things, and, I've gotta get a replacement for that one. I'll roll them back, and I have a total of 4. Because not only are they expensive, they're high maintenance. Everything is mechanical, and when you take mechanical and grease and you throw dirt, water, and everything into it, they just wear a lot. So, I always have a backup, and especially in the fall with, when the leaves fall on the streets, I need every one of them out there to be able to, clear the roadways of leaves and clear the, storm drains of leaves, at least once a week.
And in years past, we would consider, as Bob had mentioned, that, we would consider leasing, but because of the interest rates being so high, it could be more advantageous for an outright purchase.
So, quick question. I know it's not a big pot of money, but where are all it's the parking fees, like for the garage, the basin, the depot area, is that in the general fund, or does that normally fall in public works?
Garage has its separate funds, you'll see the revenues, that's the.
That's account 550.
Yes.
But that's not under public
That's not under
works?
public works.
Okay.
And then
That's
the
got
other,
its own account.
when we present the draft, the overall, the revenues are part of the overall general fund, revenues as far as fees and things like that.
But as far as parking permits and things like that, that goes in the general fund, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know if it goes under, is it just general fund revenue, or where's it go?
There's a, where the vehicle permits fees are, that section, you'll find those fees there.
So, quick question, since we have all these interdepartmental charges, do you get reimbursed for the maintenance of all these areas, since you don't get the parking cost
No,
fees? No?
no.
Okay.
And one of the things we'll have to start thinking about moving forward is, once the depot does get finished, and the pay boxes go in, all the ancillary things with the pay boxes.
The expenditures and getting that.
Expenditures, maintenance, all of that stuff. The revenues and the expenditures have to, just like the garage, they need to tie together.
Yeah,
You
the
know,
support.
the garage, has its own account.
Yeah.
And the revenues go in there and the expenditures come out of it.
Yeah.
So that, nobody's getting hit with the expenditures without having a revenue to back it up.
Yeah, and.
Why are they separate anyway, just curious,
The garage from the,
like all the parking?
Because the garage was a
Well, I know it's-
bonded, it was a
right.
bonded item.
Well, I'm thinking like
Back
the
in the day.
basin and streets and things like that, I was just curious why that's separated from public works. Has
Yeah,
it been like that way before your time?
This one, yeah. Yeah.
And that could be for maintenance too, because, once the depot's done, or 34th Street or whatever, there's gonna be some maintenance on that.
Oh, yeah.
Especially on those,
Well, there's maintenance
Bump
now
outs.
happening, but
But
there'll
when
be.
you
But it's not, yeah, we're
when
not
you
the best at
take,
maintaining.
When you take, and start creating these drainage-friendly areas, paver bricks move. About every 4 to 5 years, we're gonna probably have, contracts to pull the bricks, replace broken, add, fill underneath it, level them all out, and reset them.
So maybe we need to start, and I know this is not part of this
Sure.
conversation now, but maybe we need to revisit my idea a year ago about pay parking boxes like in the basin area and charge parking on Cermak Road to kind of help supplement these
All of the
changes.
depot is gonna be paid parking, so
So,
that's the start of it.
And maybe that money could stay in that kind of, shall we say, utility fund or whatever, in there for maintenance and things like that.
Mhm.
Because that's gonna be a big,
It is gonna
that's
be a
gonna be a
change.
big issue.
Yeah,
Because, that's what should happen there is then, your parking revenues there. If we continue with, permit sales, and, because there's several communities that I've heard of that are doing away with permit sales altogether. They say day rates, you pay the box every day you go in. Because they're making it, so friendly, it'll have an app with it.
Yeah.
You just sit in your car, punch in, bing, parking space, bing, done. And you pay for your parking for the day.
I mean, it's everywhere. Forest Park is that way,
Yeah.
Oak Park is
Yeah.
that way,
Yeah.
Chicago's that way, almost everywhere I
It is
visit
very,
is
it is
that
very
way.
seamless.
I've got like 4 apps on my phone, just
Yeah.
because they're all separate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we've got the the parking pay boxes. As part of the depot project is upgrading those to that feature as well as,
Will it be an app feature?
yep, there'll be
Okay.
an app feature on it and everything like that. And I think, God, I wanna say there's like 17 more of them going in down there.
But agreed, we would have to have separate, a separate expense line item that ties into the revenues, that are generated.
So would it ever be considered like to put that as an extra item, line item in the public works budget? To kind
Or
of,
whoever,
Yeah,
but whoever does it
Yeah.
will be.
well, you're, sir, that's
Which-
kind of interesting that you would think you would have
Whichever,
done it.
whichever department would be responsible, yes, that's definitely to be considered. Anybody else, for?
What about, we bring this up, or at least I bring it up every year, is how much are we budgeting for resurfacing our streets? Because I know we had, Alderman Lewis had her meeting, 3 years ago with the condition of our streets and how
Right.
much we should be putting into our annual budget to start doing this. And I know we're not putting that kind of money in our budget, so.
It's huge every year.
Yeah.
It was $5 million a
Yeah,
year.
but it was.
We talked about it 3 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm putting in, I've got 3 million in this year.
Okay. Just so, I know we have catch up to do, but, yeah.
It's one of those things. Right now, my only funding source, other than a grant if I get one, is motor fuel tax. And my motor fuel tax revenue is 1.6 million a year, and that is used for street paving, it's used for road salt, it's used for street light and traffic signal maintenance. Those are the 3 main categories out of there.
Okay.
So, early on, I'd been squirreling that money away, knowing that we were gonna come up with this comprehensive plan.
Yep.
So I have money in there. That's why we're spending 3 million on roads as well as keeping everything else going. But at some point, I'm gonna get back down to the fact that your funding is only what you're bringing in each year.
Yeah.
And if we're not able to succeed in more grants, then we're gonna need to look at, whether it's, adjusting our funding from the general fund to be able to pay for it, to find an alternative revenue source, or to bond for them.
Okay.
Cause at 3 million, we're basically flatlining. We're not getting any better, we're not getting any worse.
Yep, okay. Sounds good. All right, is that it? Any questions, any other comments? All right, well, I just need a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everyone, appreciate it.
Anybody ever said no, they wanna stay longer?
Yeah. Let's just run this
There you go,
back,
sir.
let's do it again.
Thank you
One more time.
This was so much fun, I'm gonna do
Oh,
it.
really appreciate it.
That's true.
You believe that something should fall into the public road? It doesn't matter where they go.
I'm sorry, say that again?
I don't care where they go.
Got one more to go.
It's just there has to be a concerted effort to deal with it.